Hey guys, welcome to Reddit Brew. Today, I will be reading from the r/EntitledPeople subreddit, so let's jump into it. My cousin sued her own sister. My great-grandaunt died of COVID in the beginning of 2020. It's been a huge blow for the entire family, especially her two daughters. The drama between them came to a head when her will was read out. She left both of her daughters 1.5 acres each of land that she owned out in Louisiana, but she left her house to her oldest daughter. That house is a family staple. It was the house my great-grandaunt lived in when she moved from Louisiana to Washington to be with someone she loved. It was where we celebrated Christmas Eve and Thanksgiving. It made sense that the oldest daughter got the house, since she was already living there to begin with. Not to mention, the younger daughter already had a house, one where she just renovated the basement and put a brand new deck in the front. She didn't need the house at all, but my cousin didn't see it that way, so she felt the need to sue her older sister for the rights to the house. She even got her daughter and her niece to turn against her own sister. Her reason for wanting the house is pretty selfish in my opinion. Her main take for wanting the house was so that she could rent it out to other people. Not even a week before my aunt died, she said to her face that making money off the house was going to be her plan. Everyone in my family was so pissed, to the point where they all announced that they weren't coming to her wedding, and the ones that were coming would be sitting on the groom's side. Her fiance was actually a nice guy. You may think that might be a little harsh, but my cousin honestly deserved it. For someone to say that they would claim their mother's house when she dies to her face is nasty. Because of all the backlash she was getting, she ended up dropping the lawsuit and apologizing to her sister. On top of that, the wedding was canceled. Was the wedding canceled because the fiance started to realize he might be getting married to a monster? I'm going to assume that may be the case, because she was treating him like a slave, always asking him to hold all her stuff. Even though they canceled the wedding, her ex-fiance still lives in her house. Wow, what a witch. How do people end up like this? I truly will never understand. I'm glad the entire family, minus the daughter, banded together and cut her off for her horrifying behavior. It seems like these stories always have that one person that takes the entitled person's side, so I'm happy that didn't happen in this one. I'm also glad the fiance dodged a bullet by breaking off the engagement, even though it still seems like he's pretty spineless because they're still living together, but at least he had enough brains not to marry her. Entitled relatives think they deserve more than my adopted son. To give some context here, I must say that I'm an IT engineer with toxic family relationships. I did cut off my father and uncles, yet I keep in contact with my cousins and their children, which somehow I treat as mine, as I had none and I'm an only child. Therefore, it's the closest I got. I always prioritize success over relationships, so I'm single, and throughout the years I felt that my cousin's children weren't mine, therefore I wanted to raise one of my own. It took me some time, but finally, I adopted an 8-year-old kid, as those usually age out of foster care. I love the experience of raising a kid, yet I have had to deal with some entitledness from my cousins. It turned out that every now and then, I usually spend some money traveling with my cousins and their children. Yet, this year, I need to save money in order to get all of the stuff my son would need. And I'm planning on going big. The best of the best I could afford. I just explained this to my cousins and told them this year our trip together would be cancelled. They said nothing, so I thought they understood the whole situation. Anyways, I wanted my kid to socialize with my cousin's children, so I invite them all to a get-together party after about 2 months when my son felt comfortable enough, and all of the kids were so mad and refused to play with my kid. He just sat in the corner and tried not to cry, but he did. I talked with the kids and they said he was not part of the family, and they deserve more, as he is adopted, and they, as my family, were entitled to the trip to the parks in Florida. I was in shock and asked them where they got that from, and they told me their parents have told them the reason I took their trip away was because of my son, who comes from the streets and isn't even family. I was fuming, so I told them all to leave. I had a Zoom meeting with just my cousins, who told me that their children must come first, and I told them they made me realize my son comes first. So I canceled their college funds, their private school tuitions, and just told them that if my kid is not part of their family, then neither am I, and they were cut off. I have been called unreasonable, but I think my son comes first, and I made the right decision. Yes, OP, you 1000% made the right decision. It's obvious that they were just using him for his money, and I'm so glad that OP got to see his family's true colors, which were not pretty. The entitled relatives got very greedy, thinking that they were entitled to OP's financial support. Then they rejected his chosen child, bit the hand that feeds, which resulted in them being cut off. Absolutely the correct outcome. I hope OP sticks with it and lets the entitled relatives figure out their own future without his financial support, because they do not deserve it, and they clearly forgot that they need him way more than he needs them, especially now that he has his own son, who, biological or not, deserves all the love in the world and undeniably comes first. Entitled Old Fart tries to cut my parents in line for coffee, so my parents stopped off for coffee and muffins. A woman about their age, late 70s, asked if she could go in front of them because old people shouldn't have to stand in line. My dad said no and mentioned that they're probably about the same age. Then she claimed she couldn't wait because she's diabetic. My mom said my dad was also diabetic and that this lady needed to stop bothering them. So this rude bitch tells my dad to prove to her that he's diabetic. The woman behind my parents felt they were being too nice and said, "Lady, he doesn't have to prove shit to you. He's standing in line like a normal person waiting his turn. You're the one begging strangers to let you cut in line." The old lady says, "Well, I never." Awesome lady behind my parents, "You never got laid? It shows." My dad paid for her meal. The good old Uno reverse card. How beautiful. That person behind them in line is my hero. It seems as though coffee shops are entitled people magnets. I have this theory that that's where entitled people spawn. All Starbucks actually have Karen portals in their back rooms. But maybe I just watch too much sci-fi. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed those 3 entitled people stories. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do, and I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!